Thanks for your time this morning as we regather the State Water Plan Task Force. We're kind of at that point where we're getting set to put a ribbon, so to speak, on the updated State Water Plan, and so we have a few final details we need to go over to get us to kind of that end goal while we wait for the remainder of public comments to come in here by the end of the month. You know, and Tara and Wes can probably elaborate further. I'm not sure that we're getting a lot of comments at this point because truly I believe everybody's ready for us to kind of finalize the plan and really then get working on implementing the recommendations that we've come up with in the plan. So I think there's a sense of, all right, we've seen the plan, let's go, so to speak. So we need to talk about what it's going to take to finalize the plan and get it out the door so that we can get going on many of the recommendations. And in fact, some recommendations are already in the works, which is the way it should be. And then finally, we need to talk about you know, where we go from here, how we go forward with the updated plan, things about like how we might update the website and so forth that we'll get into in today's agenda. So thank you again for your time and your active participation in the State Water Plan. I will need to step off in a few moments and I'll rejoin later by the car. I need to end up in Erie, Pennsylvania this afternoon, so I'll be participating in some of the meeting via car phone here in a few moments. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Wes and Tara to get us into the agenda. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren, and as you can all see by the agenda, probably the first things that we're going to cover is some items still remaining in the meeting. As you know, we all went out to public comment at the beginning of the month. That's been up, and just to give you all a understanding of what kind of response we have, we provided an online form, questionnaire to fill out, and we also provide an email address that they can provide comments back to. To date, we've received 0 emails to that email inbox, and I have received 1 response to the questionnaire. So, as Lauren alluded, that I think everybody's ready for this report to come out, and we're not really receiving a whole lot of comments lately. I know we still have some stakeholder letters we received probably a month ago, roughly, that may need still some tweaks or adjustments or consideration for the final version of the report. But it seems that we're in pretty good shape, and it seems that we may not need to do any significant overhauls of this report with the low count of feedback that we're getting on this draft report. So I guess we'll move on to agenda item number 2, which is items needed from topic leaders. And as we're kind of coming to the finish line of getting this report wrapped up and completed, we just wanted to address any outstanding issues that we had with the report that we may need before we do the final publication. So, Tara, I don't know if you have a list of a couple of comments as the lead compiler of the report, things that we still have outstanding. I know there's maybe some concerns with a couple recommendations. Do you have any comments or thoughts in regard to this, what's still needed from topic leads?
Sure, I've got a list, so don't be surprised. After the call, I plan to send out a list like I've been doing. That's been pretty successful. I know you probably all cringe when you get emails from me because I generally I'm asking for something. But we're really on the downswing. I appreciate everyone's input so far. The first thing I wanted to mention that we needed, and again, I'll list all this and it will be in the minutes, but we are trying to compile acknowledgments. So we would like all the members of your committee that have been on your committees throughout this whole process. And even if they're not active now, but we're at the beginning, that will all be in the appendix. And we would like all the committee names or also other people that you've been conversing with, other people that have given you input for your section. So any questions on the committee names? Okay, and then the second thing, I usually drill on this every time, but the report itself definitely needs photos. Some people have sent some. I put some photos in the report. So the latest version, you guys can all go to the website and see the draft version that was published for the public review, or it's called the draft version. And, you know, I've put some placeholder photos in there. A lot of times I just had a gap in the report. I wanted to put something in there. There still are gaps. So check your section, see if you agree with the photos that are in there. If not, send me some other ones. And as always, send me the attributes to the photo, which would include who took the photo, where it is, and the date. So any questions on photos? Okay, the third thing that I wanted to mention was the measurable results. And I had sent around this table in the past, and the idea is this is an exercise that's really internal, and the public isn't going to see this. This is not part of the report, but the idea was to show, be thinking ahead of time, because we know that at the end of the day, we're going to be having to submit status reports for every single recommendation in this report. And the idea was that now is your chance to frame your recommendation in such a way that you can measure your progress. So I had sent this table around, but everyone was busy finishing their section, so I didn't spend a lot of time on it. But so far, we have 13 topics, and I've received 6 responses. And again, this is really for your benefit, because when it comes to generating your status reports, if you've written your recommendation in such a way that it will make it your work harder from here forward. So I'm just going to give an example. If yours is blank, that means that you definitely need to send that to me, and I'll be sending some deadlines with that as well. But for an example, we'll start with water sustainability. The idea was be thinking about your recommendation and what is the outcome, and that needs to be included in your recommendation verbiage. So then the second part of that is how will you measure that, and that will not be necessarily included in your recommendation, but it's more for you and your committee to track. So in this example, prioritize services to underserved communities. So what is the outcome, the number of communities, and how will he measure that? But by checking the percentage of underserved versus normal communities served. That one's pretty straightforward. The second one, I'm just giving these as examples so everyone understands what we're looking for. The second one was to determine sustainable water yield and share online. So then what is the outcome? Has the statewide yield been developed, and then do a percentage of that. So these are good examples. If you want to look at water sustainability as an idea of how to fill this out, Lake Michigan did a good job. They looked at what their outcome was and actually had some measurable quantities to quantify their progress. The one I was going to pick on, I guess, maybe just starting with navigation, and BJ, I'm not picking on you. I'm just going to mention that when I read these as an outside party, I'm having a hard time understanding what you'll measure. So in this particular recommendation, the first one was that you were going to maintain and upgrade the infrastructure. So what is your outcome? That you're going to get some funding that will match your needs, and I think that's fine. But how will you measure it? You just said that the consistency will be there, or the consistency of funding. And I guess I would maybe broach that you instead need to say a percentage, or how are you going to measure that consistency of funding? Is it comparing to today's funding and future? That's pretty simple. But just really rephrase these in such a way that when you write your status report, it's going to be very simple for you to say what you're measuring. So again, there's several blank. and I have this, if you guys remember, we have this OneDrive, and when I shared this with everybody, and right now, all the sections are up there, as well as this cross-lead, or this lead cross-check. So the version we're looking at today is up there, it's shared with everybody. Let me know, the link should still work from before. And if you want to fill this in, and also I would ask that everybody review each other's and look at it and be that person that says, hey, that doesn't quite answer it for me, and put a comment or send me the comments and I'll send them out. So I'll resend this link, but any questions on what we're looking for this cross leads or this leads list? It's so quiet. Can anyone even hear me?
I can't.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Tara.
Thank you. Okay, so that's a big job, but again, I do ask you to look at everyone else's because we're a group and we need to help each other, and it's not a real easy task. And what I put makes sense to me, but it might not make sense to someone else. So it's good for us to cross-check. Okay, the fourth item that Wes alluded to, we did receive some, just as a reminder, at the end of July, we did send this out to all the stakeholders and all the groups that had already participated to date to sort of give them a heads up and have them review the draft report before we published it to the public. And we did receive quite a few comments, and I did send those out right before we released this draft report to the public. And my directions at that time were just to read through them and make any major changes that you really felt needed to be addressed right then. But with the task of really digging in deeper to those comments later, and that time is now. So I will resend those comments out, and some of them definitely pertain to one section. Some are a little bit more overarching. Before I send those out, I might try to assign a group or a topic to some of those that are obvious. So when you get those, go ahead and there's going to be some we don't agree with. For example, I know that we got some comments from a group that were the antithesis of some of the habitat and some of the goals of that program. So if you don't agree, that's fine. But I think we just need to say we don't agree, we're not changing. Be best if you could say a why, in case anyone ever comes back and just asks why that particular comment wasn't addressed. But I'll go ahead and send those out, and we'll want those comments addressed within the next month. So any questions on those stakeholder comments? Okay, and then I think this is the last item that we would need from you. Many of you went through, probably it was June at the beginning of July, and I had sections, and I had posted those on that shared site, and we had written comments to each other. We were using the review comments and track changes, and sometimes if someone had a question when they were reading each other's, they would post that in the comments. And some of you went through and addressed those and responded and made changes, but many of you did not. So I am going to send around, and I will say at the end of the day, I had to go ahead and maybe make some changes that weren't agreed to or that you confirmed. A lot of times people would say, hey, why don't you fix this? And people wouldn't fix it. So I sometimes made some changes. So now's your time to undo those changes if you didn't agree with me or whatever that comment was. So I will be sending everyone their individual section that has those comments in there. And it's just a refresher, just to remind you of what other people said or what other people needed done. And then you can compare that to the draft report that was published, and that will give you an idea of what still needs to be changed, if anything. So again, the idea is to make sure that we didn't make changes that your group didn't agree to. But again, we had to make some decisions along the way. And if you agree, we're good. It just gives you a chance to review and make sure that your section is the section that you want to publish. So any questions on that? Okay, the last thing is that Wes mentioned that we have not gotten a lot of public comments, and I also attribute that to we've done such a good job of sharing this along the way, and by pulling our stakeholders, the people that generally have a lot of comments, bringing them into the committees, and also giving them the draft version to review first. I feel like we've done a great job with that. But that said, I would like to do one more publicity push. We're expecting comments will close by September 30th. So about a week before, I might send out some emails that have you share those with any groups or any of your committee members, or just anyone that, just to help us send that one last blast out. We know a lot of times people wait till the last minute. And so I'll send a flyer or something out that you can share to make sure we get that information out there. So that's the last of things that we need from you, I guess, moving back to the agenda. Two more topics that we want to talk about, but I'm going to let Wes talk about those, is the future of the next item, I should say, is the future of the State Water Plan website. And then the second piece would be how are we going to coordinate the release of this public document, the final publication of the State Water Plan. So go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, Tara, thanks. One thing I did want to mention is I believe Lauren is starting to draft up the cover letter that's going to cover, or I guess discuss, or I guess introduce the report to the General Assembly and to the Governor's office. So that is one piece that is not in that draft report that is being compiled and will be in the final copy, and we'll of course send that around, as well as a support letter for all the agencies. So we'll ask, as we've talked about before, Lauren's drafting a letter just for all agency leads to sign on and say that they're in support of this state water plan that we've developed. So that should be coming out shortly. I'm not sure if Lauren has a time that that's going to be coming out. I anticipate it will probably be after the public comment period closes. So expect to see that, and then we will be asking for signatures on that letter of support from each of the state agencies. As we mentioned, it's important that, you know, this is a holistic report that all agencies are on board with and support as members of the task force. So with that, we'll move on to the next item, and I guess we'll jump into the agency release coordination. As we see, we're not having a whole lot of comments. We are scheduled, or had talked about releasing in November. I guess there could be an opportunity that we release it in late October, depending on how long it takes to get these final items addressed. It doesn't appear that we have a whole lot left. I guess my question to all the stakeholders is, I assume that they'll want to coordinate a public release announcement or something along those lines, aside from just DNR releasing it. And I wanted to get feedback or thoughts from other agencies on if you were going to be putting out a public announcement of the release of this, how much time you need to coordinate that. I think we can kind of get one out from DNR. I'd have to check with Lauren, but I'm guessing about a week maximum to coordinate that and to do a public release announcement. I'm just curious if there's any steps or any considerations that we need to factor in from other agencies as we go to release this report. So I don't know if EPA, Department of Ag, State Water Survey, any other agencies have any thoughts or concerns as we kind of move up to this release date?
Hey, Wes, this is Chris. I don't think that we have any additional steps more than you guys do. Our PIO would need to look at things, and our director's office, of course, would need to look at something. What I'm wondering about is if do you guys want to make a little bit of a splash with this thing and actually, instead of releasing it by way of a website, actually do some form of presentation to say the Lieutenant Governor as the host of the Rivers of Illinois Coordinating Council, or try to give it to the governor's office, or do something a little bit bigger than a news release?
So you're saying kind of give a presentation that's hosted by the governor's office or somebody along those lines?
We could probably link it with another project that's happening and being supported by one of the state agencies, but then also have, you know, not necessarily dedication isn't the right word, but delivery of, and, you know, tie the, whatever the project is that we can find to showing that the water plan is being implemented and should continue to be implemented. I don't know, my brain's a little bit fuzzy on it, but there could be some things that we could figure out how to make it look a little bit more exciting or draw some attention to it for getting people to actually read it and fund it.
Yeah, I think we would definitely be open to some suggestions on how we could do that. You know, whether we tied into another, I guess, public speaking event of the governor that he can announce it, while he's also at something that's somewhat related to the state water plan. I guess I'm open to suggestions and any thoughts anybody has on that. I agree that it'd be great to do something more than just here's a public release notice from state agencies. But I also know that we don't get much participation on the most recent public outreach, so I don't know if holding a separate event will draw much fanfare for this plan.
Okay, or maybe we could link it to an event that's already going on.
Well,
Yeah, Wes,
what I heard, sorry, real quick, what I heard Chris say too that perked my ears up was some sort of presentation to the legislation. And I have no idea how one goes about doing that, but this is for the General Assembly, this whole report, and besides just saying, here's a report to read, to provide some sort of an overview.
Yeah, this is Lauren. I was thinking kind of along the same lines. I can certainly check in with the governor's office and see if there's a particular way they would like to handle it, or I like the idea, Chris, of the Rivers Coordinating Council, maybe doing it through that as well, through the Lieutenant Governor. So we'll chase some of those down and see where that might take us, I think.
Yeah, Lauren, I'm not as familiar with the Rivers Coordinating Council or anything, but if you need us to help follow that down a little bit or track that down, just let us know. Obviously, if we're looking at presenting to the legislator, we'd probably go to you, Lauren, or Christy, and get some feedback on how we would go about seeing if there's interest to move in that direction. Is there any other thoughts or comments regarding this release coordination? Any other suggestions, thoughts?
Of course, I have one more. In the past, we had talked about putting together some sort of a summary sheet or a synopsis, and I sort of forgot about that till just now, that if we were to present it to some people, we might want to have an executive summary separate, standalone, couple pages to keep their interest, but that's something we can discuss later.
Do we see that being kind of a fact sheet with maybe the attached 140 recommendations? Because I think that's going to be the focus of the report, is going to be the recommendations. Do we have a kind of cover sheet with facts and then here's the attached recommendations? Or do we just keep it as a single summary sheet?
I guess I see it more of what you just said with the attached summary, but maybe some of those graphics from the report with the facts that say how many need funding, which agencies are involved, some of that conclusion could be in a one-page summary, and then just attach those recommendations. But yeah, obviously I'm open to any ideas.
Okay, all good suggestions. Anybody have any other thoughts of things we need to maybe pull together either with the release or summary? All right, hearing none, it sounds like maybe Lauren and our team and maybe Christy over at EPA may work on figuring out how we may coordinate a presentation of this either with the Rivers Coordination Council or a presentation of legislator or working in with another current event. So we'll kind of still move forward looking further into that as an option. And we'll assume that all agencies will want to kind of put out some kind of announcement, and we'll make sure we have essentially everything ready to go at least a week before we officially release, and we'll kind of get more details together as that draws closer. But I think the important thing is that we start getting those items together that Tara mentioned so that we can get this wrapped up and move on to the next chapter, I guess. The next thing that we wanted to talk about was a little bit about as we move into this new phase and what we want or how we want to share information moving forward. So I'm going to take control of the screen here, if Tara doesn't mind, and share the State Water Plan website right now. As you should be seeing on your screen now, it's very orientated to the construction or the development of this plan. It's the draft plan, feedback, public outreach information, all the leads and everything. And it just seems like it's very focused on developing the plan, but I foresee that we want to maybe shift this to being more implementing this plan. So I was looking to get feedback or thoughts on how we may want to shift this website. It'd be great to get a standalone website for it, but I don't know if that's a possibility or not, instead of having it being underneath the DNR website. But I guess as it is now, and particularly until we get the IWIC website or further details worked out, I guess I anticipated that we'd have a place to show, or obviously a copy of the report, and that maybe we would move a lot of this previous information, such as public outreach links that you're seeing here. We talked about still keeping that, but maybe setting that on a separate page that's maybe linked from the main one. There would still likely be upcoming minutes and keeping all this information on the main page just for reference, unless we move this to a second sheet as well as all the old reports would maybe go to another page. But I guess what I think would be most beneficial is kind of keeping the public up to date on where we are in implementing that report. And that's why I think it's important that we kind of set in stone how we're going to measure our progress on implementing these. And my thought that I wanted to see what everybody else's opinion was utilizing that table that Tara showed for that, where she said she was going to keep that more for internal review, but maybe that's what we share with the public so that they see how our progress is coming along in implementing these recommendations. Do we add that table? And Tara, I don't know if you want to pull that back up. I'll stop sharing. But I guess I was wondering everybody's thoughts on what do we want to share with the public once we have this report published, and how do we want to share our progress in implementing that report? So does anybody have any thoughts if they like that idea, they don't like that idea? I'm welcome to any feedback.
No, I personally, I think that would be really important, really good idea. You could show like I don't know how to describe it, a progress bar where you show, like if you're fundraising, you'd have a bar that would fill up a line until you get to 100% completed. That kind of thing is a nice visual, although I think that might be harder to quantify for some of the recommendations. So just a thought.
Yeah, David, I think that's why we're kind of pressing to get these recommendations measurable so that maybe we can somehow show that, whether it's an overall bar at the very top that shows all recommendations and how far we are on them as a total, and then we could even, if we have that table, we could show them individually as well in case somebody's curious on how things are progressing for a topic that they're most interested in. I see a couple things here in chat I'm going to look at here.
Hey, Wes, I was also going to mention what I put on the screen. This is actually in the report. We talked about how we have a section called Measuring Success. And this was just an example report or sample, something that we would be showing. I think it ties into that table I had, but this is a little more succinct, that each task or each recommendation would have a line like this, and the report would, again, this measurable effect or measurable quantity of how you're measuring your result would be put in here. And then I think this could be tied back into that complete bar we talked about doing to show the total progress. But it is going to be a little tricky to do that full bar because of what Wes said earlier, that each one might be 50% done or 25%. Is everything count as a one? But we could figure that all out later. But the idea here was to explain why we might not be getting something done, not just because we're not addressing it, but that there might not be funding or there might not be staff yet to implement a program. So we wanted to be able to give a little bit of explanation as well.
Yeah, good point.
Wes, this is Chris. What would you think about having, in addition to what you guys are talking about as far as the current status of it, but having like an every 6 months screenshot, or I shouldn't say screenshot, but PDF of the table, so that if somebody wanted to go and look and see what was accomplished between, January 1st of 2023 and June 1st of 2023, and they could see where progress was occurring or where things were happening. So it wasn't just here's where we are now, without an idea of, did this all get accomplished in the last 2 weeks, or has this been growing over the last few months or years?
Yeah, Christy, that's a great idea. And one thing that we used to do, and we still do, is we've always met at least quarterly. So I wondered if with each quarterly meeting is when we release the updated numbers for each of these recommendations. And therefore, whether we have that table directly on the website or we just have a link to a PDF, maybe we do both so that we have the historic ones as well. We kind of show that progress being made. Would quarterly be too often? Would we, if you're looking 6 months, or do we just do it annually? I realize if we're looking at quarterly, that could be pretty often where we may not see any significant changes. And so, again, I like the idea of showing this table to the public that Tara has shown on the screen here. That was kind of the intent. I think it's just kind of a question of do we want to do that quarterly? Do we want to do that every 6 months? Is everybody okay with sharing that information with the public and putting it out on that website?
I believe so.
It seems to me that, annually would be more realistic considering, the wheels of funding and getting things started and just even though this task force was hampered by COVID, things just don't move that quickly. So annual would have more of an opportunity to show some accomplishments. I would imagine though that wouldn't preclude, the task force, at a quarterly meeting if something substantial has been done to, have a press release or something like that. But that, there would be more of just an expectation annually of what's been going on, not only milestones, but I think any hindrances or unforeseen things going on that I may have to adjust a recommendation or something like that could be part of it as well. So,
Yeah. And as we have it written now, and you can see directly under that table, it says that we'd update that table quarterly, just giving the numbers, and then annually we do kind of a short write-up summary report that may give a little bit more detail about what's going on or why some initiatives aren't moving or what was completed, and highlighting those completed tasks for the given year. So that's how we have it written now. We can tweak that if that's what you want, but it would be just a quick email, maybe the month leading into the state water plan saying, hey, here's the numbers you had last time in the status of your table. Send us the update, and maybe there's not an update for all the recommendations. Do we still want to keep it that way? I essentially see this table going on the website and then the annual report being in PDF format available for download.
I mean, having an official release in a PDF format is a good idea. I mean, anyone can just take the page and print it to a PDF. But if we do it, I think it makes a little more highlight on it.
Yeah, I could see where it'd be good to have more of a report type thing of here's what we accomplished in the past year. This is it was talked to be a 5-year plan. I think I've talked Lauren into pushing that more to a 10-year plan. So they give us, about 7 or 8 updates before we would begin the process again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think we could, within a given year, we could see some of the recommendations completed each year, and hopefully have some things significant to include in a more detailed report. But then I guess it'd be one of the I don't know how you'd say it. One of the benefits to here's the next State Water Plan Task Force meeting, because we're going to be releasing our updates on where we are with all of our recommendations. So it kind of comes out all at once.
Wes, I'll add, I think I agree with everything that's been said. Do the annual official report and then the quarterly updates. And I think another benefit of doing those quarterly updates is it does keep us honest. If before the task force meeting, you have to go through and check your percent completion or whatever it is how you're measuring, I think it will just keep it in the forefront. For me personally, it will help me make sure I've accomplished something with my group.
Could we add a column to the table that says, like, table updated or whatever? So if so we've got the opportunity that if somebody wants to provide an update, they can go ahead and provide it, or if they don't want to, they don't provide it, and people can see where the status was for that.
Do you want that for each recommendation when it was last updated?
I was going to say, yeah, if there was just another column there, and then as people were updating, providing their information, they'd be able to update when they reported it. And if there was no change, they could either choose to leave it with what it was for the last quarter, or they could go ahead and update it. Or leave it blank.
I think that'd be an easy add, and again, another way to keep people accountable. And Chris, what you were talking about earlier, I agree to that we could PDF some of these tables and link them for if someone wants to look. But we could add another column, and you know, this is we can add whatever is needed for the purposes of our status, but maybe adding a column saying what the last percent was done, or the last milestone was done, just for quick reference, or the last update included this, so that you can see that progress was made. That might be another way to get that information out there.
That sounds good to me.
I guess I'll go against the flow here a little bit, saying that I guess we could. I'd be less in favor of adding a column saying when it was last updated, because it allows us to kick the can down the road, versus just saying, well, all of these are updated quarterly, and if there's no change from the last time, then there is no change. I can see the benefit where, okay, it was last updated 6 months ago because we can't make any initiative on it, but I think that's why we have the kind of the restrictions or obstructions, or maybe that's more of a status. I guess I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on. It seems like it may be a way for people not to provide updates. Then that's my only concern, is they'll put, not that a lot of recommendations won't be in limbo, but I think it's just be, well, we won't do nobody will send any updates in that case. Is my concern, I guess.
I don't think you're wrong about that. I'm having a hard time implementing my programs and reporting them and tracking them, so I'm hopeful, but I'd say we just come up with a system and try it, and we can always change midstream.
I think that's something we definitely agree on. We'll have to kind of see how this goes over time as we initiate a new system, and seeing what kind of speed bumps we hit along the way. So maybe we'll just go with this for the time being. If we're finding out that there's some issues that we want to add more information, we can. You know, I mean, we can add an extra column of when it was last updated, but I think that if we get some topic that's unresponsive and they haven't responded in 3 years, I mean, does that look just as bad or worse than a couple of recommendations that haven't been updated in a couple of years because of one of the listed restrictions or obstructions, like no funding not available, and we can just put that. But, you know, if it hasn't been updated in 2 or 3 years, well, it's like, well, has it moved? Is it still in that current status, or has it just not been updated? That's my thought. Well, I think we'll kind of move to maybe having this table on the main website, and then maybe we'll have archives of what this table was, maybe available on a documents page for the State Water Plan Task Force. Maybe we'll put it in the same place that we put, you know, all these old documents as well, and just have an archive essentially page. Is there any other information that we think that should be included for the public? One thought I had was if we wanted to have separate pages for each topic, and maybe that goes to whoever the lead agency is. They have their own page. So if we want to have a page on, say, water sustainability, then we can kind of have a little bit more detail of what that is, maybe some details of where the data is that pertains to the recommendations. You know, I anticipate, we mentioned there was going to be a focus on providing data to the public and finding it easily. And I know that's kind of the job of IWIC, but we also may have some other resources that we need to reference. So I wondered, or I guess I proposed the group, and maybe it wouldn't be every issue listed, but if anybody thinks there'd be a benefit to having, I guess, individual pages for each of these issues to provide greater level of detail on their initiatives. Or is that just more work that nobody has time for? Which is definitely a valid response as well.
I would think that if there are some people who want to create such a document, that those could be posted, but it wouldn't be required, you know, just if there is time and effort that people want to put into it.
This would be a good place for, we've got a recommendation, we've got a lead agency, but maybe there's, you know, 5 more organizations that are participating in it. So that additional information could be included on these individual pages. So I think if it's an opportunity that we can use, it's cool, as long as we don't have to do something for every recommendation.
Well, it sounds like maybe we just leave it at each topic lead's discretion on if they want a location to provide more information to the public. We can work to help create that, or create a link to, you know, your own agency website if you want to direct them there. And we'll just leave it with that. I think we still kind of keep this main table. Let me share this back again. I think we still want to have this table with the point of contact, just in case anybody has any questions. I know this needs to probably be updated some. We got some people on this that I think have even retired. So we'll look at updating this, but I kind of see this being at the top and maybe the recommendations down below it. We'll have future State Water Plan Task Force or upcoming meetings still on here. But maybe that'd be the preface. And then within this table or somewhere else, we could make a hyperlink if they want to find out more information. They could click on the issue if they wanted to have a separate page. Does that sound good to everybody, or is there any other recommendations on how we can better provide information to the public? All right, I'm seeing a couple thumbs up, so I assume that everybody's good with that. All right, I will stop sharing. Tara, if you want to pull the agenda back up again, I think that we have covered most of what we had on our agenda. I want to make sure I wasn't missing anything.
Hey, Wes, this is Chris.
Yeah.
So the webpage, in addition to what's been talked about, will it also include the notes from the quarterly task force meetings?
Yes, so as there is now, there is a minutes from each task force meeting. So Megan hops on and diligently types up our minutes, and we put those out. So as you can see on the website, there is, with each page, there's a link to the agenda, the minutes, and a video of this recorded WebEx. So those will be continue to be provided as we move forward.
Okay. I guess what I was wondering about was actually having like a separation where now that the new update of the plan is out, that the minutes would be closer to the front of the page instead of needing to look down into the page to find them, in case this became more of an archive than a current.
So you're saying move the recent task force meeting details higher up on the page?
Just for the meetings that are occurring after we release the plan. So there's kind of like a line in the sand. We've got the pre-release and then we've got the post-release.
Okay. Yeah, and
just a thought.
Yeah, and you know, I don't want this list of previous meetings to go on and people having to scroll for. So maybe we just show the most recent 3 or 4, and maybe we denote when the report was released, or maybe we note that by a separate heading: post-release meeting details, pre-release meeting details, and only show a couple of meetings instead of, you know, eventually having 20 or 30 of these all down. But that's things that we can kind of see how it looks and make adjustments as we go forward. But yeah, I think we want to maybe clean those up a little bit, and it may be good to denote what meetings we're after. One other thing that I think that, and I guess I'll defer to Lauren and maybe get other individuals' comments, is, you know, should we maybe more formalize the meetings and include the approval of the minutes, things of that nature? Right now, we are just putting minutes out there. Does anybody see the benefit of, you know, us providing these minutes to you all after a meeting and then approving them at the next meeting?
I think it gives the meeting minutes some credibility if folks have reviewed them and make sure that they reflect what the task force understood things to be. So for the short time it takes just to ask for approval of minutes, I think it's probably worth that.
Okay, well, we will work with Megan to get those minutes out to you all shortly after the meeting, and make sure there's no comments to those, and then if there's no, or we'll make any edits that anyone wants to impose on those meeting minutes, and then we'll move to approve those at the following meeting. One other thing that I wanted to also add into our typical agenda is if anybody has any, I guess, new business or anything that they want to bring up for discussion. As we kind of, before we kind of move into the reviewing the schedule and discussing next steps, I guess I'll open it up. If anybody has any new business, any comments, questions, or thoughts, I'll open it up to anybody.
This is Lauren, just a comment that next week, Glenn Heaston and I will be presenting the Illinois Integrated Water Information Center concepts to the State Water Survey Advisory Board, and we do have some draft legislation that we're already working on for the spring session. So just an update on that recommendation. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. I'll allow the awkward pause to go on just for a little bit longer in case anybody has anything else they want to add.
While everyone's thinking, I just wanted to confirm phone numbers. I have a 92, which ends in 92. Who would that be?
That's Gary Bingenheimer with the Illinois EPA.
Thanks, Gary. And then it looks like 65 is Lauren. That's all I've got for phone numbers. And then just a quick comment on the website. I know that I've talked, we have a website coordinator here at DNR, and just so everyone's aware, and I think I've mentioned this before, unfortunately we don't have really great website development options. So I just wanted, I know originally I had reached out to Phaedra to archive some of these minutes, and it didn't seem like the website format or her base allows her to do a lot. So that said, I just bring it up if other people or other agencies have, I think we all use the same platform, but if you do have website or web coordinators, maybe we could pull some together to do some brainstorming to make this a more attractive website. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. If you've got ideas, just recognize we might be limited, but if you have ideas and know it's been done at the state, let us know. Thanks.
Yeah, and Tara, this is Lauren. We have some new contacts that do it, and so given that this is a multi-agency endeavor, I think we could probably get Do It to give us some additional bells and whistles to add to the website when we're ready.
Yeah, great, Lauren. Maybe we'll coordinate a meeting with Do It to just see what options we have available, and if anybody has an interest in being a part of that effort, you can just put your name in chat or send me an email, and we'll work on maybe updating this website, maybe getting a draft out around release time. And I'll just do a final call for any new business or comments, questions.
Just to recap, as topic leads, we're going to get a nice big email from Tara about all our items.
Of course you will.
Thank you.
Well, okay. Well, I think that covers most everything we have. As far as the schedule goes, public outreach.
Wes. Sorry, two quick things. I did want to put a plug. We did put together some of the exhibits for cross-cutting and all that. I'm not completely pleased with it. I know some people had given some advice, but I wasn't able to incorporate some of those to other websites to be able to generate different formatting. Anyway, read through those sections as you read through the whole report, and if you've got ideas as a way to present that information better or in a different manner, just let me know. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, sorry, Wes, there was one, when Lauren presented his integrated water management, for his first two items, and I'm just bear with me as I pull them up, his first two items actually have a price tag. And I wasn't sure, we've talked in the past if, none of us had the time or the budget to be able to generate how much these cost, funding request. And, that's the goal of the next 5 years or 10 years is to, the first step will be to develop how much money we need. But that said, this is something that's a little different in the report. So I was just curious. He's got them in his recommendation. Just bear with me as I pull it up. And I didn't know if anyone else had ideas of how much they wanted to ask for now, or if we instead put this in a different location. So I'm sorry, I'm not finding it quickly. It's been a while since I looked at the report. Here
Hey, Tara, while you're, oh, okay.
So sorry, so basically his first one here, he's saying that the IWIC, which he's suggested they're far enough along that they're already drafting legislation and putting together financial obligations. But he is telling exactly how much he wants for IWIC and how much he wants for the task force. So again, if we want this in the table, or since no one else has it, I didn't know if we wanted to put it in the funding column or if we just wanted to talk about it. So I just throw it out there that I'm just not sure what to do with this. So any thoughts?
I was waiting for somebody else to say anything, but since everybody's quiet, I'll say I like how it is now. I keep the funding as it's shown in that table, just so it's consistent with all the other sections. If there is a cost that we know, sure, you can put it in the recommendation, but then it's not required for everybody to come up with those dollar amounts since we decided not to include that information or make that information required for each recommendation. So I like how it is there. You can include it if you want to.
This is Chris. I would agree with that.
All right, thanks. I just wasn't sure if anyone had read through the entire report, and I guess I do strongly recommend you do that. And if you do have an opportunity and you know how much something's going to cost, go ahead and put it in there. It certainly doesn't hurt.
This is Chris again. This is kind of out of left field, but on Saturday of this last Saturday, September 17th, the Daily Herald, which is the suburban Chicago's information source, did do a news article on the state water plan with the heading of Keeping Water Safe, Preventing Flooding, Updated State Water Plan to Give Suburbs New Guidance. So you're in the news.
As we should be.
Thanks for sharing, Chris. I haven't seen it. That's great. I've seen when we first sent out our blurb that it was going to be published, some of the smaller newspapers did just make a note that it was going to be published. So again, if you ever get articles, definitely pass them our way so we can keep track of that stuff. Thanks.
I'll send you the link now.
Okay, Tara or anybody else? Anything else that we need to cover? I didn't want to cut Tara off or anything. All right, well, I'll go ahead and jump down to reviewing the schedule. As you all know, the public outreach ends September 30th. I'll send out whatever comments we receive to the general group. As I said, so far it doesn't look like we're getting anything that's going to cause any substantial changes or anything, so just be a lookout on that. You'll also see email from Tara with what's needed, and maybe Tara and Lauren and everybody will have kind of a goal on when we want that implemented or fully back. I anticipate that would be no later than mid-October, if not earlier, just so that we can kind of put a bow on this. It's been a long effort and a lot lot of hard work put in by a lot of individuals. So again, I want to thank you all for all your time and effort on this. I know we're all busy and have a lot to accomplish aside from just this effort as well. So we're almost there. We're almost at the finish line. The next meeting, I don't think we have set, or actually I take that back. I think we're looking sometime in October to address comments, but I don't think we'll have a whole lot of comments coming out. Lauren, do you have any thoughts on if we want to have a meeting in October to just discuss any final pre-release information, or maybe we could even go early November? I welcome any thoughts on if we need. Typically, like I said, we do quarterly meetings, but I guess I assume that we'd want to have a meeting before December, since we'll be releasing this in either late October or November. So any thoughts on when we want to meet again?
Yeah, I think touching base in late October makes sense. Just doesn't have to be a long meeting, but just to make sure we're all on the same page as we're heading towards the release.
Okay, well, maybe I will send out a availability poll to the group just to see when we can meet. I know I have a lot of, it seems like a lot of conferences pop up during that time as we get into the fall season. So we'll see when everybody's available and try and get something on the calendar for mid to late October. I know Mondays typically work pretty well for everybody. I know we all love having a nice meeting on Monday morning. So maybe we'll keep up with that pattern. So expect to see that as well coming out from me about availability of a meeting time in October. So with that, I think that's it. I think our focus needs to be on getting those final things to Tara once she sends out that list of to-dos for us. And once we get that back, we'll be working on implementing that into the report, or putting that in the report and getting hopefully a final version of the report out ready, maybe for a quick final review in October before we release it out to the public. So I assume everybody will want to take a final look at it before we make it public, so maybe we'll send that out around that late October meeting timeline, so that we can discuss any final concerns before we officially publish this report. Does that sound good to everyone? I assume everybody's good with that.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, that's all I had. Lauren, do you have anything that you want to speak before we sign off?
No, just anxious to get things finalized, and thank you to you and Tara, particularly for keeping our eyes on the ball and helping us to move forward to that goal. So thank you, everybody.
All right. Well, thank you all. Keep your eye on the emails. They'll be coming out shortly, and we'll look like we'll be meeting again in October. So until then, thank you all, and have a great week. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.